Hello, today's segment is on simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is the interest you pay back on a principal amount at a specific percentage rate over a specific time period, while compound interest, although very similar to simple interest, is a little different. It's the interest added back to the principal amount, and then you find the percentage rate on that new amount, and you compound it continuously over whatever time period you want. I'll explain that to you as I go along. Simple interest is written several different ways. Simple interest, interest, SI, abbreviated for simple interest, or I, the abbreviation for interest. You may see any one of these examples on a questionnaire. As in most mathematical problem, you'll find that simple interest as a formula. The formula for simple interest, I'm going to write it out first and then abbreviate it for you. Simple interest is principal times the rate, or the percent rate, times the time. This is your formula. And to abbreviate it, what you more likely will see on a questionnaire is this. Simple interest, SI, is the abbreviation for simple interest, is equal to P, which means principal, times R, which means rate, times time, or T, which means time. P for principal, R for rate, and T for time. This is your simple interest formula. You will see it written like this, or you may see it written like this. It may be in parentheses or brackets beside each other, which means multiply, as I explained to you in earlier segments. And also, you will see it like this: P period R period T. Principal times rate times time. That is your formula. As in every formula, you follow it to the T. You plug in what each part represents. You plug in what each part represents. So I'm going to do a few, or set up a few simple interest problems, and then later I'll show you how to solve them. Okay, I have a question here on the board. It's Mary borrowed $1,000 at a rate of 6% for 8 months. How much interest will she pay back? To figure this problem out, you follow the formula. The formula is simple interest is equal to principal times the rate times the time. And I would just substitute each of these for whatever they represent. So we are trying to find the interest or simple interest. They didn't ask you how much simple interest will she pay back. They just say how much interest will she pay back. You know it's the simple interest they are talking about. So I set the problem up. Interest equals the principal. The principal amount that she borrowed is $1,000. And the percentage is 6%. Remember, percent is over 100. And because they're doing it in a parenthesis, you'll find that they will put it in a decimal form. So 6%, we know we divide the top number by the bottom number. The decimal is behind the 6, and to divide, you move it 2 places to the left because 100 has 2 zeros. 1, 2. So 6% is also 0.06. Please remember this. Please remember this. Percentage. When you're writing a percent, it's over 100. It also means the top number divided by the 100. And you just move the decimal places 2 places. So in this case, 0.06 is the same as 6% because it's 6 over 100. And the rate, or the time, that's the rate, I'm sorry. The time now is 8 months. When you have a simple interest problem and they give it to you over an 8-month period or over months, months always go over 12. Months always go over 12. So in this case, it's 8 over 12. And you want to change it to a decimal as they do everything else in the equation. 4 into 8, 2. 4 into 12 goes 3 times. So it's 0.3. So it's times 0.67. They round it off to the nearest 100. Since it's 0.666 continuously, they round it off to 0.67. This is how you will see the setup. And they will may have a question on the board or on the questionnaire or on the question sheet or whatever it is you're looking at. They may give you a question like this or that has answers like this. You may see and so on and so forth. This is answer number 1. This is answer number 2. This is answer number 3, and so on. And you have to choose which one is the correct answer. If you know how to set up your simple interest formula, you will get it right every time. The first one will be the correct one because 6% is 6 over 100, which is also 0.06, and 8 months is over 12, which is 2/3 of a year, which is 0.67. Every time they give you months, it goes over 12. If they are giving you years, years always go over 1. So for example, if this, let me change 2 criteria here. I change the percent to 4.5%, and I change the time to one year. So Mary borrowed $1,000 at a rate of 4.5% for 1 year. I just change it up just a little bit. To solve this problem, I'll have to know how to set it up. Simple interest equals principal times rate times time. So to follow my formula, I put interest, or simple interest, is equal to, what is the principal? The principal amount is 1,000 times the rate. The rate is 4.5%. 4.5%. I have to change it to a decimal. So 4.5 is also 4.5 over 100. It's also 4.5 over 100. And this means the top number divided by the bottom number. And when I'm dividing by increments of 10, 100, 1,000, and so on and so forth, I just move the decimal place however many zeros I have. I showed that to you in the last segment, percentage. So here, the decimal is here. I'm dividing by 100, so I move the decimal 2 places to the left. 1, and I have to create a space, so that's 2. So this would be 0.045. Times 1 year. Year go over 1. 1 over 1 is 1. 2 over 1, however many years they give you, it's always over 1. So you just have to just put the year, the amount of years right there. So this would be how you set it up. So Jack borrowed $150,000 to buy a house. He got the loan at 5%. At 5% interest for 20 years. How much will Jack have to pay back? The question is, how much will Jack have to pay back? So Jack borrowed $150,000 to buy a house. He got the loan at 5% interest for 20 years. How much will Jack have to pay back? They want to know the total amount Jack has to pay back. That includes the interest, and then you add that back to the principal to find the total amount that he will have to pay back over the 20-year period. So the first thing I do is I apply my formula. My formula is interest equals, or simple interest equal, principal times the rate times the time. PRT. SI equals PRT. Principal times the rate times the time. So my principal amount, simple interest, is equal to, my principal amount is 150,000 times the rate. The rate is 5%. That's 5 over 100. That means divide, so I move the decimal places 2 places, so it becomes 0.05. Times the time. They gave me 20 years. Years go over 1. So it's just times 20. This is how I would set it up to get my simple interest. This is how I would set it up to get my simple interest. So it's 150,000 times 0.05 times 20, and then the total amount after I get this interest, I'll have to add it back to the principal to find out what's the total amount that Jack will have to pay back. I got a loan of 500 at 4% for 6 months. How much interest will I have to pay back? Let me hurry up, set it up, and I'm going to work this one out. Simple interest is equal to P times R times T, where P is the principal, R is the rate, and T is the time. So to set it up, simple interest is equal to, the principal amount is 500 times the rate, percentage rate, which is 4%. That's 0.04 because it's 4 over 100, and I divide it, I move the decimals 2 places to the left, times the time. And the time is 6 months. That's 6 months. That's over 12. That would be 6 over 12 because months always go over 12. Always. So 6 over 12 is reduced to 6 into 6, 1. 6 into 12 goes 2 times, to reduce to 1/2, and 1/2 as a decimal is 0.5. So this is how I would work, I would set this problem up. And then I just multiply, because the parenthesis means multiply. So 4 times 500 times 0.5. 4 times 500, that's 400, 400, 4 5's 20, and that's 2 decimal places, and that's times 0.5. 500, 500, 500, 552 is 10. How many decimal places after the 0? 1, 2, 3. I move it 3 places, 1, 2, 3, and my answer is 10. So the interest that I will have to pay back on a loan of $500 at a rate of 4% over a 6-month time period is $10. And if they asked you how much will you have to pay back, that means the total amount, not just the interest. If they're asking you how much interest, they will specifically ask how much interest will I have to pay back, or will Jack have to pay back, or whoever will have to pay back. But if they don't ask you, if they don't ask you specifically about the interest, for example, if they were to say, how much will you pay back? That's the total amount. So you'll add this amount, which is the interest, back to the principal amount. Let me do another. Borrowed $1,000 at 7.5% for 1 year. How much do I pay back? How much do I pay back? So if I borrowed $1,000 at 7.5% for 1 year, and they ask me how much do I pay back, I find my interest first, or the simple interest. Simple interest equals principal times the rate times the time. So simple interest is equal to whatever the principal is, which is 1,000, times the rate, whatever the rate is, 7.5 or 7.5%. 1/2 is 0.5, so that's 7.5 divided by 100 is 0.075 times 1 year. So that's the principal times the rate times the time. When I'm multiplying or dividing by increments of 10, 100, 1,000, I'm multiplying, I just move the decimal place to the right. However many zeros is in that number I'm multiplying by. So if it's 1,000, I have to move the decimal place 3 places. So now this will become 0.075 times 1,000 is 75, because I move it 3 places. And 75 times 1 is equal to 75. So this is $75 is the interest. That is just the interest. Now how much would I have to pay back? It would be I had the interest to the principal, and my answer is $1,075. The question is interest on $200 at 6% for 3 months. They just want to know the interest. I just set up my problem using the simple interest formula. Simple interest, or interest, is equal to P times R times T. And I just plug in what each letter in the parenthesis stands for. The P means principal, the R is the rate, and the T is the time. So SI is equal to principal, which is 200, times the rate, which is 6%, 6% is 6 over 100, and you divide that, it becomes 0.06 times the time, 3 months. Oh, months always go over 12. Remember that. Months always go over 12. So 3 over 12 is also 1/4. And 1/4 as a decimal is 0.25. You see, when you get this far in math, the testers expect you to understand what the equivalent of certain fractions are as decimals. For example, if I was to have 1/4, it's equal to 0.25. 1/3 is equal to 0.3. 1/2 is equal to 0.5. 2/3 is equal to 0.6, and 3/4 is equal to 0.75. These are decimals that they expect you to know. Oh, you can't see that one. 2/3 is equal to 0.6. And 3/4 is equal to 0.75. These are decimals they expect you to know how to change quickly a fraction to a decimal. And how you do that, you divide the top number by the bottom number. And if I divide 1 by 4, I'll get 0.25. If I divide 1 by 3, I'll get 0.3. If I divide 1 by 2, I'll get 0.5. And so on and so forth. They expect you to know these little simple things. So here's my setup. Simple interest is equal to principal times the rate times the time. So I multiply 200 times 0.06. Now remember, you're not allowed to use a calculator in specific parts of the test. Some parts you are allowed to use the calculator, but not in every part. In something like this, you more than likely will not be able to use a calculator. So you need to know your timetables. Please, it is very, very important. So 200 times 0.6, 600, 600, 6 2s 12, one decimal place, that's 120, times 0.25. So that's 120 times 0.25. 500, 5 2s 10. Put the 0, carry the 1. 5 1 5s and 1 6. 2 0 0, 2 2s 4, 2 1s 2. 0 0, 6 and 4 10, carry the 1, 2 and 1 3. 2 decimal places. So my answer is 30. So interest on $200 at 6% for 3 months is $30. This is very important. Look how I set it up. Look how I have my formula. Look how I plug in the principal, the rate, and the time. Look how I change a percent to a decimal by dividing the top number by 100. Look how I change the time to a decimal because it's over 12. You have to remember these things. This is simple interest. This is how you get the interest. Now, compound interest is a little different. I have compound interest on $100 at 5% for 1 year. Let me show you how to figure it out. And I will continuously compound it, maybe over 3 years or 4 year period, just so you understand the art of compounding simple interest. Please, this is so important. You have to look at what I'm trying to show you. Take your time and try to understand it. If you do not get it the first time, rewind the video and look at it again. Please, this is very important. So, if I'm going to compound 100 at 5% for 1 year, so CI is equal to, I find 100 at 5% at 0.05, because you know 5 is over 100, that's 0.05 times 1. So this is the first year of compounding. So now I have, this is just the interest, 5 or 0.05 times 100, this is equal to $5. 100 times 0.05, I just move my decimal places 2 places, so that's 5. 5 times 1 is 5. 100 times 0.05 is 5 times 1 is 5. So $5 is the interest. So to compound that, I had the $5 to the 100. And now the second year of compounding will be 100, CI is equal to 105. Because remember, I add the interest to the principal amount, and that's what you are compounding, the interest on the principal times the percentage rate that was given, which is 0.05 times 1, because they gave you year, it's 1. So now it's compounded 0.05 times 5, times 105. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 decimal places. So it's 5.25 times 1, which is also 5.25. Let me write that a little better for you. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 decimal places. So this is my new interest on the compounded amount of $105. So now, when I'm going to compound for another year, I add this amount to this, which would come to 110.25. So this would be the new amount that I would be paying, $110.25. So now, to compound for the third year now, compound interest is equal the new principal, which when I had this, it comes to 110.25 times 0.05, because it's still 5%, times 1. So I multiply this times the principal, the rate times the principal, that's 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 is 12, 5 times 0 is 0, put my 1, 5 times 11 is 55. How many decimal places? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I move 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember, it's a dollar amount. It's a dollar amount. 1 second, you cannot see that. Give me a second, you cannot see that. So this is equal to, when I multiply it, I'm sorry, you couldn't see that. When I multiply 110.25 times 0.05. Remember, you cannot use a calculator at this stage. So I have to know how to multiply decimals. I showed you that in my decimal segment. Please go back and look if you need to refresh yourself on how to multiply decimals. I passed that segment, so we should know how to do it. So now I multiply 110.25 times 0.05. 110.25 times 0.05. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 2 is 10. And 2 is 12. 500, put my 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 1 is 5. How many decimal places I have after the decimal? Up top, 1, 2. After the decimal, here, 1, 2. That's a total of 4 decimal places. So I come at the end of the number and I move 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is 5.5125. Remember, this is money. This is dollars and cents. So you have to round it off to the cents, to the nearest cents, which is the 100th place, which is the 1. How do you round off? You look at the number that comes after it, and if it is 5 or larger, you go up 1. If it's 4 or less, you leave it as is. So since this 2 is less than 4, my answer here would be 5.51. That is my new interest, $5.51. Now to continuously compound, I would add this amount back to the principal that I have right here, $110.25, and then I will multiply it times 0.05 again and continue the process of compounding. Very simple. Please look back at the tape. If you have any questions, I ask you kindly to look in the comment section and you ask me any questions that you would like. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Remember, when you're multiplying decimals, you count off the amount of decimals that you're multiplying by and then move it back that many spaces when you get your answer. If you're multiplying or dividing by increments of 10, 100, or 1000, you just move the decimal places. If you're multiplying, you move the decimal place to the right, however many zeros you're multiplying by, or to the left if you're dividing. These are tricks of the trades. You need to learn them. You need to remember as you go along and we get deeper into mathematics, the terminologies will get deeper. So they'll abbreviate more. You'll see SI or CI. CI for compound interest. SI for simple interest or I. You'll see parentheses when it comes to multiplying. Parentheses. This times this times this. Principal times rate times the time. You just plug in what goes in the formula. What's the principal? What's the rate? What's the time? Remember, when you're dealing with rate in a simple interest or a compound interest problem, the rate is always over 100, but you don't never see it like that because they're going to divide by the 100. So if it's 5%, it's 5 over 100, and you divide by moving the decimal places 2 places, so it's 1, 2, it becomes 0.05. And the time, if they give you years, years is always over 1, and months is always over 12. And if they give you months, it's over 12. Remember that you always reduce and then you change that fraction to a decimal. So you will see something like, if it's 6 months, it's 6 over 12. Reduce is equal to 1 over 2. 1 over 2 is 0.5. So right here you will see 0.5. Remember these little steps. This is what takes you to another level when you're taking a test. Look back at this video. Look how I set up my simple interest problem and how I set up my compound interest. And what do I mean by compound? You just compound the interest onto the principal, and then that new principal amount, you find the percentage rate on that amount, and you continuously compound. If they ask you for over 2 years, you compound it twice. 3 years, you compound it 3 times, and so on and so forth. Thank you for watching this segment. I hope it was very informative for you. Remember again, I thank all my essential workers and all my first responders. Thank you so very much. I will always keep that on the board just to remind me of you, of the beautiful, wonderful, excellent, magnificent. I cannot express how great a job you all are doing. Thank you so very much. I see you in the next segment, which should be ratio and probability. Thank you.